Good to see you again. This is ARIRANG News, live from our studio in Seoul. I'm Hyun-kyung. We begin this hour with the latest on the missing AirAsia flight. Officials now say they have spotted the plane at the bottom of the Java Sea using sonar technology. However, search efforts there are currently being hampered by bad weather. For the latest, let's connect by phone to Connie Lee. So Connie, what's the situation now?
Hi, Hyun-kyung. Well, search efforts have now sadly turned into recovery efforts as an Indonesian official told CNN that sonar technology has detected the plane at the bottom of the Java Sea. As of now, it is unknown if the plane was found in one piece or if it was broken up. Unfortunately, search crews are battling stormy weather and high tides, and right now, recovery efforts via helicopter have been suspended. Now, the total number of bodies recovered is at 7, and officials say one of the bodies was of a crew member. Now, the bodies and debris have been found about 10 kilometers or 6 miles away from the plane's last point of contact off the coast of Borneo. Currently, about 30 ships and 21 aircraft from Indonesia, Korea, Australia, Malaysia, Singapore, and the U.S. are involved in the recovery efforts. Hyun-kyung?
Connie, now that the bodies are being recovered, the challenge ahead may be identifying them, given that it's already been 4 days since the plane went missing.
Yes, you're right. Well, a disaster victim identification center is now open at Indonesia's Surabaya Airport, where the airplane took off on Sunday. Now, in the midst of mourning, the family members of the victims started to line up today to turn in their DNA samples to help identify the victims. The Indonesian president has ordered that all 162 people who were on board the flight be found as soon as possible. In Hyun-kyung, it is still unknown what caused the plane to crash into the sea on Sunday, less than an hour after taking off from Surabaya to Singapore. A public memorial is also planned to be held in Surabaya this evening, local time, as it is New Year's Eve today. The celebrations there have been canceled so the nation can focus on praying for the victims and their families. Back to you, Hyun-kyung.
Right, clearly a very difficult time, if not agonizing, for Indonesia and everyone involved. Thank you, Connie, for the update there. In other news, we are following a second patient who was being tested for Ebola in Scotland was found to be negative for the infection. Scotland says a blood sample of the female healthcare worker was taken to a testing facility in Edinburgh. The woman who recently returned from West Africa was taken to the hospital on Tuesday after feeling unwell at a youth hostel in the Highlands. This comes a day after another healthcare worker identified as Pauline Kefraki was diagnosed with the virus after returning from Sierra Leone. She was the first person to be diagnosed on UK soil. She's now being treated at a hospital in London. The strongest suspect in the recent hacking attack on Sony Pictures was North Korea from the beginning, but even back then, there were people who did not agree with that theory. Now, a company in the U.S. says it has concrete information to prove Pyongyang's innocence, but the FBI is still sticking to its original claim. For this story, here's ARIRANG News' Kim Hyun-bin.
U.S. cyber experts say they have concrete evidence that a former employee of Sony Pictures was behind the recent hacking attack on the company, not North Korea. Cyber intelligence firm North Corporation said Monday that it had narrowed its search to 6 suspects, one of whom is a former Sony employee who had the technical capabilities to carry out such an attack. North says it had data on the malware used in the attack, and that it pointed to information that only Sony insider would have. The firm's findings run counter to what the FBI has said about the case. They have pinned the attack on Pyongyang and are sticking to their guns. The FBI in a statement on Tuesday said there was no credible information to suggest anyone other than North Korea was involved. From the outset, suspicion in the attack was directed at the North. The virus used for the attack was coded in a Korean language environment similar to the ones that struck South Korean banks in 2013. But experts say that is not enough to link the attack on Sony to North Korea, as the malware is available on the black market. Cybersecurity experts say there's a slight chance the FBI's conclusion might be correct, since they may have access to intelligence that points directly to North Korea, intelligence the FBI has chosen not to disclose. Kim Hyun-bin, ARIRANG News.
President Park Geunhye says her administration will refocus its efforts in 2015 on laying the groundwork for reunification with North Korea. In her New Year's message today, President Park pledged to end the 70-year-long conflict between the two Koreas and open a new era of reunification based on strong national security and by changing the North through trust. Domestically, the president stressed that the most important task is revitalizing the economy. She pledged to change basic economic fundamentals to do that and also promised to continue to address deep-rooted irregularities. But North Korea may not be on the same page with the president. Today, the regime blamed South Korea for the current inter-Korean tensions and demanded a change in policy. That's without giving an answer to Seoul's proposal for talks. The Rodong Sinmun newspaper says the South has pushed inter-Korean ties to a state of disintegration, calling for the South Korean government to cease its hostilities. The paper also criticized President Park Geunhye's Unification Preparation Committee for pushing the vision of reunification. This comes just 2 days after South Korea proposed talks with the North sometime in January. It started out as a somewhat of a joking matter, but then quickly evolved into a serious criminal case. The heiress with nut rage is now being put behind bars for violating some aviation laws. Cho Yeon-ah, the eldest daughter of Korean Air CEO Cho Yang-ho, was taken into custody late Tuesday night. Kim Young-gil reports.
Cho Yeon-ah, the former vice president of Korean Air, was taken into custody late Tuesday night on charges of violating aviation safety laws and abusing flight attendants in the incident that is now most commonly referred to as nut rage.
같이 탔던 승객분들이나 사무장분들 하시고 싶은 말씀 있으십니까?
Earlier this month, Cho ordered a plane she was traveling on to return to the gate in New York after she was served macadamia nuts in a bag not on a plate, as is the service protocol for first-class passengers. Cho stands accused of forcing the chief steward of that flight off the plane and physically assaulting him. Korean Air is also under fire over allegations that it tried to cover up the case. On top of former Vice President Cho, a current executive of Korean Air was also detained on charges that he had destroyed evidence and forced subordinates to give false testimonies to investigators.
Yes, I partially acknowledged.
일부 인정하신 부분이 어떤 부분들이시죠?
I acknowledged the mistakes I've made.
Korea's transport ministry is also in the hot seat for the way it has handled its side of the investigation. Last week, a ministry official was arrested for leaking details of the probe into Korean Air. The ministry has since vowed to punish 8 of its officials for misconduct during the investigation. Korean Air faces a possible 30-day flight ban, most likely on its New York to Seoul route, or fines of up to $2 million. Kim Young-gil, ARIRANG News.
Korea's consumer prices this year grew at its slowest pace since 1999. Data released by Statistics Korea shows that prices edged up just 1.3% in 2014 from a year earlier, raising concerns of deflation. This is the second year in a row that the country is posting 1% range price growth. That's way below the Bank of Korea's target range of 2.5% to 3.5%. As for December alone, consumer prices edged up by a mere 0.8% from a year earlier, marking the slowest growth in 14 months. Analysts attribute the slow growth to falling oil prices and say downward pressure will continue for the time being as crude prices continue to drop. Korea's largest automaker Hyundai Motor and its sister company Kia Motors plan to sell 8.2 million cars in 2015. This ambitious goal comes after the automakers are estimated to sell a record 8 million units globally this year. Their production is expected to be boosted by production overseas. Hyundai Motor says it's going to build 2 new auto plants in the Chinese cities of Changzhou and Chongqing. Once completed, it's expected to boost the automaker's annual production in China from the current 1.2 million units to 1.8 million by 2018. Korea's finance minister says there's no need to be too pessimistic about the state of the economy. In a ministerial meeting on Wednesday, Park Geunhye said Korea is showing signs of recovery with retail sales and facilities investments rebounding in November. In a separate New Year's message released by the ministry, Choi said the Korean economy stands to benefit from improvements in the global economy and dropping oil prices, but added that the interest rate hike in the U.S. and the weak Japanese yen remain as downside risks. The government expects 3.4% growth for this year and 3.8% next year. And now we are going to give you a look back on the year 2014 in the economic and business arena. One major incident affecting the Korean economy this year was, with a heavy heart, the Seoul-ho ferry sinking. Now in this next report, our Kwon So-ah talks about the slow growth trap the Korean economy is facing and much more. Take a look.
Life is hard. Something must be done about the economy.
There's a limit to the money ordinary people can really use.
I've been working at the market for around 14 years. This year felt like the most difficult year.
There were expectations of an economic recovery at the beginning of the year. But now, the country is grappling with slow growth. April's Seoul ferry disaster dragged down consumer and business confidence, resulting in lower consumption and lower investments. The Consumer Sentiment Index plunged to 105 in May. There were short signs of recovery, but the index dropped for 3 straight months again.
I don't think anybody really expected the effect from Seoul to last this long. But I think we were very unlucky in that it was coupled by some international developments. For example, slowdown in China, slowdown in EU.
The government has responded to those internal and external factors.
Whether it's fiscal or monetary, we need an expansionary policy for the time being.
Dubbed Twenomics, the government's plans included a $40 billion stimulus package and deregulation measures for housing loans. For support, the Bank of Korea cut the key interest rate once in August and again in October. But historically high levels of household debt have been a hindrance to monetary policies, raising concerns of a long-drawn slump.
Okay, if you asked me about 3 months ago, I would say no. But because the situation has gone on for so long, I would say that it is within the realm of possibility right now.
But many analysts say Korea isn't likely to follow the footsteps of Japan that has suffered from decades of lost growth.
There have been positive signs of late, such as low oil prices and the depreciating won.
And some say if private spending increases in the first quarter of next year, the economy might even do better than the government's most recent 2015 growth projection of 3.8%. Kwon So-ah, ARIRANG News.
On the trade front, the year 2014 will most likely be remembered as a year of abundant free trade agreements. Seoul has concluded negotiations with 4 countries this year alone. Here's a rundown with ARIRANG News' Song Ji-sun. With the latest edition of a Korea-Vietnam FTA earlier this month,
Korea has concluded negotiations with 4 countries this year, starting with Canada in March and then China and New Zealand in November. Seoul now has 15 FTA agreements with 52 nations, accounting for 73% of the global economy. This achievement is all the more remarkable as it was reached in a little over a decade, with Korea's first FTA with Chile going into effect in 2004. As for the FTA with China, Korea's biggest trading partner, Seoul made the protection of its agricultural sector its top priority, excluding rice and other major agriculture and fishery products from its deal, while China granted Korea greater access to its service and ICT sector. With Vietnam, bilateral trade volume is expected to grow by at least 20% next year. And as for the deal with Canada, that's set to go into effect on January 1st next year, Korean automobiles, accounting for more than 40% of Korea's total exports to Canada, are said to be the biggest beneficiary. But meanwhile, Korea's livestock industry will be hit hard though, as tariff on Canadian and New Zealand beef will gradually be lifted over the next 15 years. In 2014, Seoul's focus was on wrapping up bilateral free trade deals, but for 2015, it's on sealing multilateral and regional pacts. Korea's goal is to ink a trilateral deal with China and Japan before the end of 2015 and reach agreements in the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, which involves 10 ASEAN member nations, along with India, Australia, New Zealand, and Japan and China. 송지선, 아리랑 뉴스.
And now we move on to the information technology sector. Some of the new ideas materialized by mobile messaging companies this year are changing the way people communicate and even make financial transactions. Our Kim Ji-yeon looks into what's coming our way in the new year.
2015 is forecast to be a golden year for mobile messengers as they expand into other sectors such as finance. Korea's top mobile messenger and web portal, Daum Kakao, introduced the bank wallet Kakao in 2014, allowing its 37 million users to transfer up to nearly $100 a day to other Kakao users. The service is changing the way people send gifts of condolence or celebration to family and friends. And local commercial banks have seized on the opportunity as well. Their participation enables users to transfer the money they receive straight into their personal banking account the following day. Daum Kakao is also expanding into a credit card payment service that helps users purchase goods online. All of this is possible in part because of Korea's obsession for fast connectivity. The country's largest telecommunications operators are commercializing an ultra-high-speed tri-band LTE service. It will enable users to download a movie in less than 30 seconds. This is 4 times faster than 4G LTE service. However, it's currently only available in certain parts of the country where at least 3 audio frequencies are available. The telecom operators hope to expand availability throughout the coming months. The same obsession for growth is expected to help local companies become the first to commercialize the 5th-generation service, which is 1,000 times faster than 4G LTE. SK Telecom is aiming to provide the 5G service at the upcoming 2018 Pyeongchang Olympics. Samsung Electronics has set a goal of commercializing the service by the year 2020. The company believes the move will give them a competitive advantage in the era of the Internet of Things, in which everything we touch and interact with is connected to the World Wide Web. Kim Ji-yeon, ARIRANG News.
And sticking with mobile technology, China now has the world's most valuable technology startup. Xiaomi, the Chinese smartphone maker, has raised a whopping $1.1 billion from investors, putting its total valuation at $45 billion. Lee Ji-yoon tells us more.
Chinese smartphone maker Xiaomi is on a roll. It has even edged out the taxi booking app Uber for the honor of being the world's most valuable startup. The company announced that it has raised over $1 billion in its latest round of fundraising, pushing Xiaomi's value to $45 billion. Founded just 4 years ago, the company's remarkable tale of growth has grabbed many by surprise. Earlier this year, it was named the world's 3rd largest smartphone maker by shipment volume, overtaking both Samsung and Apple in China. China has over 500 million smartphone users in the country. So what led to the success? The company provides high-quality phones at cheaper prices by conducting sales through the internet and luring in young consumers with clever marketing strategies. With its skyrocketing growth, it's now eyeing the global market. This year, Xiaomi entered India, Malaysia, Singapore, Mexico, and Brazil. However, critics have accused Xiaomi of copying Apple and its smartphone designs and marketing campaigns for new products. In fact, the Swedish telecom giant Ericsson sued Xiaomi this month for allegedly infringing on its patents. Other challenges abound for the fast-growing startup, with one of them being the rise of rival companies in China that are trying to undercut Xiaomi by using similar tactics. Lee Ji-yoon, ARIRANG News.
Bringing you the fresh updates from stories breaking in Korea and abroad. We give you a bigger and better picture of the world. Join Hyun-kyung live from Seoul. Every weekday, only on ARIRANG.
The year 2014 held many arts and culture events, some old and some new. Our Im Yoon-hee was at most of the sites bringing us back the details, so here's a wrap-up of this year's events.
8,765 hours of singing, 365 days of dancing, 12 months of things we've seen, and some things we've never seen before. 1 year of life, a year colored by the arts and culture of our world. You learn from your past, but also from the past of others. This year saw the production of performances based on major historical events. The musical hero immortalized Korea's historical nationalist An Jung-geun and sang his dramatic story of patriotism and self-sacrifice, all for the sake of peace.
An wanted to create peace between Japan, China, and Korea. For this musical, I wanted to depict that deep meaning.
And through the arts and culture, these historical moments and figures live on, the memories of An Jung-geun, a true hero, to never be forgotten. But there's just so much to learn from history, and it's not always from textbooks. A precious collection of maps were gathered for an exhibition, the first of its kind. Maps that all point to an East Sea, or Sea of Korea. Maps that serve as a source of truth for both Korea and the world's history. But the arts also go beyond the performance. It's weaved into every day of our lives, jumping over any and all barriers. Architecture is just one of those aspects where art has blurred the lines. The group Munjibang show that they have both the talent and creativity to build a bridge between reality and fantasy with their piece, Shinseon Play. And fashion is of course another source of art that we encounter on a daily basis. We're not always dressed for the catwalk, but for some, the body is a blank canvas. Yet some artists have even evolved past any canvas at all. The once still masterpiece works of Vincent van Gogh stepped onto new terrain when they burst to life through technology and tens of projectors in what is being dubbed new media art. The arts and culture of our lives. It's a flurry of people, things, and ideas. A unique collaboration between two very different countries, two entirely different cultures collided in one of the most beautiful performances we saw this year, a whirlwind that left behind the hybrid performance called Vortex.
In many levels we have this vortex, ancient, contemporary kind of handshake, which is also for me a vortex. Finland and Korea meeting its vortex.
The reputable Finnish choreographer is well versed in Western-style dance, but also follows an organic movement inspired by nature, low to the ground, very similar to Korean traditional-style dance. And to round out the year of successful collaborations, True masters from various fields of photography, dance, and even fashion came together for the Skywalk project, where all that once was is no longer applicable, and it's okay to leave a few questions unanswered.
It's not about answering the previous artists' questions or following in their footsteps. The future of art is about asking questions about their questions and experimenting so that there's always the unknown.
2014 held many ups and downs, many stories of success with some bumps along the way. But it's each one of these performances that allow for another. Artworks and creations that pave a path for progress into the future. Im Yoon-hee, ARIRANG News.
Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Kim Bo-kyung with your weather updates. We kicked off the morning with snowy conditions and it is still snowing in some regions. Brisk cold winds have moved in, blowing at 10 meters per second over on the west coast as well as down in Jeju where a strong wind watch has been issued. Snowy conditions have cleared up for the most part and daytime highs are 5 to 7 degrees lower than yesterday. Plus, wind chills have moved in, making it feel colder than the actual numbers. It looks like another round of snowfall is expected to begin later tonight and up to 15 centimeters may fall in parts of both Jeollado provinces. Also, keep in mind that it may be difficult to check out the first sunrise of the year tomorrow on the west coast due to snowy conditions. Well, some of you may be headed out to celebrate New Year's, and if you do so, make sure to gear up for the cold because wind chills will pull down the numbers. On to the readings. Seoul reaches 2, Daegu hits 4, Busan reaches 9. On to other regions. Jeju peaks at 12, Dokdo hits 4, Mount Kumgang dips to -5. Those are the updates we're following at this hour, and back to Hyun-kyung.
And that's ARIRANG News for now. Thanks for your company. I'm Hyun-kyung. More news coming up at 6 p.m. Korea time.